All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm here with my wingman, Calvin, Carlstein Jung. And we're here with Katya as always. And we have a special guest on, Kiefer is joining the podcast again. Welcome back, Kiefer.
Hello.
And we are talking about Top Gun, and this is a compare and contrast with Top Gun Maverick. So Top Gun came out in 86. Top Gun Maverick just came out this year, 2022. And the first one's directed by Tony Scott. The newest one's directed by Joseph Kosinski. And I think it'd be kind of interesting to compare and contrast these because I think it's a sequel. It's not a reboot or anything like that, but they seem like pretty different movies to me.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so
I think
we'll
it's important to compare and contrast because literally, I mean, that's what they're doing.
Right.
They're comparing like what it came from to like what it is and playing off of nostalgia. So I think it fits into that. I don't think you can talk about Maverick without talking about Top Gun anyways.
Sure, for sure. So I'm going to give you the budget for Top Gun Maverick, and then I want you to guess what the budget for Top Gun was. So Top Gun Maverick had a budget of $170 million. What do you think Top Gun's budget was? Remember, it came out in 86.
I would say the budget for that one was probably like, I don't know, 75, 100.
Okay, what's your guess, Calvin?
I'm going to go with 15 million.
You looked it up. There's no way.
Yeah, I looked that up.
There's no way you would guess that much. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, yeah, it makes sense because all of those shots are stock. I don't think that they really collect a lot of. I mean is I don't think that they did very many days of shooting of real planes.
No,
I think that was
doing real things that they were not doing real things the characters were actually doing.
Right.
No,
I think that was probably
way.
like 3-4 days of shooting. It maybe was a whole week of the whole shooting schedule.
It was more than that. They did do a
it was
significant
probably just
amount of filming.
watching a bunch of planes fly around.
But there's a significant amount of the movie that's spent filming in like a fuselage, like a projector behind them and a front projector to get like that reflection on the cockpit glass. There's a lot of shots that were collected by a stunt aviator who actually passed away during the filming of this. His plane crashed when he was doing a spin. So,
Gosh.
Yeah, so a lot of the footage that ends up being on the projector was collected by like a different like stunt flyer who's not using a jet because it would just not be economical to collect it that way.
Yeah.
I did find an article that said it cost the production $11,000 an hour for Top Gun Maverick to fly a jet.
So that was the most expensive. They wanted the buzziest price. Okay. It ranged. It wasn't always up to $11,000, but it was up to that, depending on.
But I mean, like
the flight schedule.
Even still, that sounds reasonable though, because you like just knowing that the Navy prices a flight hour on the gas, but also on like the maintenance time that goes into like maintaining all of that stuff too. So like
we should also introduce you further.
Sorry, I'll save it for later. I'll save it for later. That doesn't sound unreasonable to me for an F-18 to cost $11,000 an hour. That doesn't sound unreasonable to me.
No, I'm just saying we should introduce you further. You're currently active duty in the Navy. You've been on a carrier. You've been on destroyers.
That is what the room.
You've been on deployments.
That's it.
And you're also, I mean, you are an aviator. I mean, I know you do helos instead of jets, but you're a part of that community. So
you've got some cred.
Yeah. When you say that, when you quote me prices on jet fuel, I would tend to believe it.
What's the price of jet fuel?
That's like an F-18 can hold more fuel than my aircraft weighs, than my helicopter weighs.
Wow, that's a great fun fact.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Do they also factor in like the salary of the pilot as well into the cost of it?
I don't think so, because that's already been budgeted by the Navy in general. It's not like the pilots are being like, hey, they're being told, hey, you need to come do this, we're going to give you money. It's part of their job already anyway. Like, we're all salary employees. It's that the budget for paying people who are enlisted is already factored in. That there's no reason why they would.
Well, so
there's no reason why they would increase the amount just to give the pilot a bonus or anything. I don't think that's a thing.
Well, I would say the only reason I ask that is because it's taking productive hours away from something else that they can be doing. That's when I price something for work. That's our assumption is that that's how much they cost because they're not doing something productive.
But there's all kinds of jobs that those pilots could at a time that is not necessarily important. Like any pilot who is actually flying those aircraft isn't necessarily somebody who's at a squadron, like on a carrier deployed around like Iran. You know what I mean? Like those pilots could be in Hawaii teaching, being paid or something, and they got pulled to go do this because they were a really good pilot. Like,
so that $11,000 number, that $11,000 number is if they were not already scheduled for a training exercise.
I would assume so. Yeah,
that's from the article. That $11,000, like if they already had a training exercise scheduled, they didn't charge them.
Oh, okay.
And that may be true because like the training exercises require like you to schedule ranges and things like that, and sometimes that takes extra manpower managed by civilians too and contractors. So then that might add to the actual cost of doing things, is if like civilian contractors who manage like fighting ranges and things like that get involved, I would think.
So I have another fun fact. This episode's going to be chock full of them because Top Gun came out so long ago and there's just so much information on it. I watched like a 3-hour documentary of like all this behind the scenes stuff. So Tony Scott, they got like 4 days to film on a carrier. That's where you get all those shots. It's just 4 days. And they were on this heading and he was like, this is perfect. I'm going to get the shot. The lighting's just right. And then the carrier changed its heading and he freaked out. He's like, no, like my light. And so he was like, what do I have to do to change the course? And it ended up being like it would cost $2,500 in fuel to change it back. So he went and wrote a check. And apparently the story is he said he took it to the bridge, gave it to the captain, and they changed the course back to its original heading. And then he needed like 5 more minutes. And so it cost him $2,500 to get 5 more minutes of footage.
Yeah.
But he changed the direction of an aircraft carrier. So that's like, he said like, that's my cool story from this film.
That's amazing.
That's my cool story.
Which in like the grand scheme of things is it probably wasn't the captain of the carrier who changed the course. It was probably some like ensign who was the officer of the deck told the coxswain to turn or whatever. It's like it's some
saying a lot of words.
Ensign who's 4 months out of the academy or something like that with like jack shit for experience. You know what I mean? It wasn't the captain of the ship who did this. It was just some jabroni like who's just doing his job, just like turning to keep the seas from messing with the ship or something. You know, something benign. It's not like the CO of the ship was trying to sabotage his cinematography shot.
Still a cool story. Another thing is Rick Rosovic, who plays Slider, which is Iceman's his co-pilot. Mm-hmm. He was actually kicked off the carrier. The captain like sent him off. He apparently he got drunk or something, went into one of the officer's berthings and slept in his bed. And when the officer came back and he was like, you need to get out, he pretty much just told him to screw off. And so he got a warning for that. And then another time he was just like fooling around and the captain had enough and he was like, you're done. And so he got flown off the carrier.
Wow.
And they were only there for 4 days.
They were there for 4. Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you
so
mess
he didn't
up
even
4
complete,
days?
He got flown off on like the 3rd day. So he didn't even complete filming. Like, on it.
It makes you wonder how people can be underway for like 65 days without seeing a port and somehow manage to not get in trouble doing stupid things like drinking.
Drink all the rum.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're drinking the
rum.
What
a clown.
They're pulling up fish.
Okay, so we've gotten away from it a little bit, but let's get first impressions of this. Calvin, what do you think of this? Like comparing both of these movies, like blend your impression of them together.
So I would say that my first impression of Top Gun Maverick is similar to the experience of doing a paint by numbers picture. like the shape is there. And we're just waiting to see what kind of colors they fill in. But I feel like that's also a little bit disingenuous because I feel like the creative license allowed by the art form of paint by numbers is a little bit more open than this movie.
Wow.
Glowing review.
So
I'm so confused about what you're saying with that analogy.
He's saying.
Well, it's like something as formulaic as paint by numbers is still more creative than this movie is.
Is that what he's saying?
Like, are you saying the movie was like predictable?
In such an unhealthfully boring way. Yes.
Of saying okay. Cool.
No, I get that. I could tend to agree with that.
Yeah, I would call this one of the most soulless remakes I've ever seen and the worst movie-going experience I've had in the last like 5 or 6 years.
But it's not a remake. It's like
a half
sequel. Whatever.
Like
rehash.
2016 Ghostbusters was a remake. It wasn't a sequel.
I would call this a rehash then. I mean, rehash even feels like a little bit generous for this.
They all fall in the same vein, whether it's a sequel or a reboot or a soft reboot, whatever it is.
The intention is
same vein.
the intention is
There's
to make
no way
money
that a
off
reboot and a sequel are in the same vein. One is a complete retelling, and one is a continuation. They're completely different things.
Well, the thing is like it's you're capitalizing on some property that already exists, and that's really why they're in the same vein. Isn't that what
everything in the history of ever does, is capitalizes on something that's already there?
You got to go see Men.
Yeah,
that's original.
Man, my God, is that original? Yeah, in some ways, yeah. There's no new stories, but the express purpose is like, hey, you remember this awesome movie that came out? Guess what? We want to capture all of that magic and redo it, rather than like, it's not even like they want to give different wrinkles to the story. They just want to use all of the same plot points and then just kind of. But
that's like
new camera.
That's like
angles.
saying that a brand new roller coaster at a theme park isn't allowed to be the best roller coaster on the planet simply because it's a roller coaster and there's been roller coasters before.
So you're saying this is the best movie on the planet? Also, there was a Top Gun roller coaster at Six Flags Great America after the 1986 one, by the way, guys. Okay. So
I'm just saying, like, to say that because there's other things that have come before it that it's a derivative from takes away from its like quality. I think
it's a specific
not necessarily
derivative.
Accurate.
You know, it's not like they're taking influence from the idea of storytelling in general. It's that they're trying to take from the idea of storytelling of this specific story and not make
absolutely.
anything interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, neither movie was meant to be a great story. It was meant to be awesome to watch. It was meant to be fun to participate in. You know what I mean? It wasn't meant to be
and I think
some mind-blowing, like Quentin Tarantino twist at the end kind of like gut-wrenching story.
I think the point that Calvin's trying to make more is whether it's a reboot, soft reboot, or a sequel, you're still trying to capitalize on the same audience no matter what, and that's why they all feel the same. It doesn't matter if it's 30 years later or if it's like you said,
a prequel or a sequel or a remake
or a Ghostbusters remake. Yeah, it's still, you're still trying to get that nostalgic audience to feel some way and go see your movie.
Yeah,
that's why they all feel the same.
It's like making a new flavor of Mountain Dew. Like, I'm still selling to the same audience, and I'm not making like Pepsi.
Yeah, but no, I get that. I felt the same way watching this. It's like and so then I would go into like my first impression of it is, I knew this movie was blockbuster, trashy popcorn movie, and I knew it sucked the whole time I was watching it, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was schlock bullshit, and it made me feel a way. And I hated that it did that because we've watched so many like really original like indie movies and like these really small budget movies with like really creative directors, and none of them got me feeling quite the same way this one did. Like I got a little choked up at some points in this movie. Dude. And it reminded me of what you said, Calvin, when we talked about Ready Player One, where you get all that final battle and you're seeing all these characters that you know and love from all these video games and other properties that you've enjoyed growing up. And you're like, my body reacted. I got goosebumps. And you're like, I hate this because I shouldn't be feeling this way, but this movie's making me feel this way. That's how I felt watching Top Gun Maverick. I was like, I know this isn't very good, and I know it's not original, and I know I've seen better movies than this, but like, I got choked up watching parts of this one. So that would be like my impression of Top Gun Maverick. Is it's not anything special, but because I have such a connection to the first one, it made me feel a way in this one.
Yeah, dude, I think I watched all the people coming out after when Calvin was going to the bathroom, and I just loved seeing one who was there. It was just like so many guys, and there was a lot of attractive men there too, I won't lie. Just kind of like swaggering out of the theater, just like smiling big. Which leads me into my first impressions is that I finally see the penises everywhere. Like I finally, you guys have always saying that there's penises in every movie.
Yes.
So much phallic power going on.
Yeah.
I mean, they just really turned down the gayness in this movie from the 86 one, and it's still pretty,
We'll talk about that later. That's my favorite. That's for me. If we talk about getting hard-ons later, I'll say that the only time I even got like a semi-lady hard-on was that when they played the shot again of Iceman doing his little like sex bite.
Oh yeah.
Like at Tom Cruise. I was like, okay, I can see that.
You're like, I like this movie now.
I didn't hate it. I got a little bit overwhelmed by it at the end. I think it's always one of those things where I see big movies, but I've never like been in a plane like that, so it doesn't feel real to me, even though it's like, yeah, it was all filmed like from a plane, the first one and the second one, none of it felt like real flying to me. Just because I guess I don't know what it feels like, and I don't understand how difficult it is. So that for me is like, I try to really like it and get into it, but I just don't know how. I don't have that connection. I have no emotional connection to it.
So yeah, I kind of get why you don't have the emotional connection to it like I did. To me, this is like one of those quintessential dad movies from the 80s. The same with like Blade Runner, where I'm sure like Calvin, I'm sure your dad was. I'm sure he liked Top Gun, right?
I don't know.
Oh, you know?
I mean, I didn't see Top Gun until after I'd seen Maverick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we
watched. Oh my god!
Watched them backwards. Okay, yeah, you may say that, but oh my gosh, is Top Gun so much better than Maverick?
Top Gun.
All right, so Kiefer, give us your first impression of Top Gun Maverick.
I loved it. I loved it as like an experience, right? Like I didn't go into it expecting the story to like knock my socks off. I expected it to go in and be extremely fun to be a part of, and that's exactly what I got. Like I thought it was so much fun to watch. It didn't matter to me that there were like cringy parts, like how much of an asshole Hangman was, or like I don't know, like the romance part with Penny, who's a new character, or whatever. Like that stuff was like so far in my peripheral, it didn't even really matter to me because I just let the movie happen to me. You know what I mean? And I got exactly what it was trying to give, which was just a bunch of fun. I thought it was awesome. I loved watching it. Like it was like you were saying, like holding back tears like 3 or 4 times, like not because it was sad. The movie's not sad per se. Like there's some like dramatic parts, there's some serious parts, but like the movie's not sad. It's not trying to get that reaction out of you, but it's like anybody who's willing to set aside the storytelling aspects of it and just let the movie happen will absolutely have a blast watching it. That's exactly what I did. I didn't care about the story necessarily. I wasn't critical about any parts like that. It was just letting it all happen to me. You know what I mean? And I thought it was awesome. It was the sounds of the jets flying around. That stuff, that kind of stuff is always awesome. You know what I mean? Like being around F-18s that kind of thing is just always awesome.
I knew I had to go see this in the Dolby
Sorry, go ahead.
theater. Because I was like, I know the sound is going to be awesome. So there was a standard one, and I was like, I'm not seeing this in standard. I got to see it.
No, like my only bummer is that like I saw it in the theater on base, and it's a really tiny building. Instead of like going and seeing it in IMAX, like I would 100% go and watch this in IMAX if I could.
Do they still play the national anthem before movies on base?
They actually do, and it totally caught me off guard. I didn't even realize that. And then I found out that one of the chicks I know from one of the other helicopter squadrons is like. In the very beginning of it, I was like, oh my God, I know her.
Whoa.
Oh, no way. That's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a question then that can kind of blend both these movies together and start to compare them. So one of the writers flew in an F-14 prior to writing the screenplay for it. And he talked about how physically demanding it was to be in the cockpit with these pilots. And he said he really just started to view them as athletes. And so as he was writing the movie, this is for the original Top Gun, he was like, I want to make this a sports movie, not a war movie. And so I want to know, which I think is the best way to describe this, because after rewatching Top Gun, I was like, this is exactly a sports movie. It's to show how hyper competitive these guys are, willing to do whatever they can to push themselves to the limit.
Everybody's sweaty.
Yeah,
They're really sweaty.
So does Top Gun Maverick capture that same feeling, or is it a different kind of movie?
It's wildly different. It's so different. I can't even begin to tell you, like, like you said, like some of the humor feels like Marvel. It feels like a more serious type Marvel movie with like some attempts at bad humor, some attempts at like the gravity of the situation of their mission, which is all just pretense for drama.
But they had a mission, which was great to have a mission.
I suppose, but if you're looking for the drama, if you're trying to capture the magic that was the original Top Gun, this screenwriter didn't understand what made the first one so much fun, what made it so great, because we spent way too much time on a story that sucks. I wanted way more jet fighting, way more camera work, way more awesome stuff like that. Because like you're saying, like if you just suspend your disbelief or like just suspend your distraction of the story, this movie is actually pretty sweet because it's not trying to be anything. But the problem is the story tries to be something and tries to be a completion of a story that already was finished in the first movie. Like why we care about Rooster at all is confusing because he made peace with Goose's death when he threw the dog tags into the sea at the beginning.
But it's not that simple, Calvin.
But they wanted to make it so simple in the first movie, and so to rehash it here is so confusing.
But it's Tom Cruise. It's Maverick making peace with Goose's death. It's not the whole point of the Rooster thing is that like it's the Maverick and Rooster relationship. Like Maverick's made peace with Goose, and that's the whole thing. But now you have this third part that he has to this third thing that he has to deal with. There's a second thing that he has to deal with. You know what I mean? Like it's just because he's like come to terms with hi baby. Just because he's come to terms with Goose's death doesn't mean that like the whole Rooster thing doesn't matter anymore.
Well, but there's a part where when he meets with Iceman and he tells him to let it go, it sounds like Maverick is still holding on to whatever pain
it's because
from death,
I guess part of it was because he feels responsible to Goose to help keep his son out of danger.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, in the second one, I didn't really get a lot of tension between like Goose and Maverick or whatever, and it seemed like the biggest issue with Rooster was that Rooster was mad that Maverick pulled his papers. Like we could assume they might have had a good relationship.
And that, like, so right off the bat, like, now that you bring that up, because that's something that I was going to wait until somebody brought it up. Yeah. That's not a real thing. Like,
oh, yeah.
you can't do that. You can't do that. Like,
as a captain.
I know, I know somebody who got accepted to OCS, right? Like officer candidate school to go and get commissioned as an officer. He got in trouble, because he was roommates with a guy, I guess it doesn't really matter what his roommate did, but because he was roommates with this guy who got in trouble, the CO tried wrangling him up into this whole problem because he was roommates with the guy who was in trouble, and they were saying, well, you were roommates with him, you must have known that this was going on, how did you not say anything? And trying to basically she tried pulling her CO's recommendation for his like OCS acceptance package or whatever to try to get his OCS acceptance pulled. And he ended up going to like the JAG, right? Like the legal people. And they were like, no, you can't do, like, she can't do that. That's not a thing. So there's no way, like, like some of the, the officers might be like buddy with people, but there's like processes in place that situation would never happen. You can't do that. Like, but it's Maverick has no say in who gets accepted to the Naval Academy. That's just not a thing. He could have snuck
in. Like, he probably snuck in and legit just took his...
Well, he's got all of his Mission Impossible training, so...
Yeah.
Oh, so, speaking of things that aren't real, Jerry Bruckheimer was the producer on the first Top Gun and this Top Gun as well. Mm-hmm. And he talked a lot about, this is for mom and pop in Oklahoma. That's how he described the audience. It's for, mom and pop going to see the movie and, like, kind of your... It sounds like a really nice way of saying, like, the simple moviegoer to describe them as Oklahoma. And so I think lines like that and scenes like that are built in for like that kind of audience. So like another thing that got added in is there's no Top Gun trophy. That doesn't exist.
Because they got to make a sports movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
got to win something.
Yeah, that's sporty.
So this Rear Admiral Pete Pettigrew was the technical advisor for Top Gun. And so he would basically tell the writers and director, like, hey, this would never happen. Like, no one does this. And then the writers and directors would be like, well, but we need to make a movie for mom and pop in Oklahoma. And so the scenes with, like, we pulled his papers or, like buzzing the tower, stuff like that. Like, that's for fun movie. It's not for like Navy really specific. Telling what happens to these pilots and stuff like that. So I get why they do that. It's got to be a fun movie. But it's a matter
of whether or not you hold that stuff against the movie or not. Like, I accept that there's probably like a half a dozen things I know that make that movie completely impossible and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not you hold it against the movie.
So the pilot that buzzed the tower or whatever, so they do that on a real base, that actually happened. And apparently a bunch of people started calling the base because he does a couple passes around and he's flying real low. And I guess other pilots called and they're like, did some pilot get bad news? And he's just trying to make his last flight, like one to remember. Like like that's how crazy it is to actual Navy people to buzz the tower.
Yeah. Well, it's because when you're inside somebody's airspace, you have multiple different routes on about like how to get into that airspace, like what altitude to be flying at when you're going in, or what altitude to be flying at when you're going out of the airspace. So there are course rules on how to get in and out. So if somebody is deviating from that, everybody who's in the airspace is going to be like, hey, what is going on here?
It's an easy court-martial, and you're out of the Navy if you do that.
So I mean,
but it's a cool movie. It's a great movie scene.
Easy, no problem.
Which is why I'm glad I watched the first one to they really drilled home the idea of the hard deck, because in the second one I thought the bar was just like a euphemism. I didn't realize it was like until like later in the movie they're like, oh, it's the hard deck, and I was like, no. It's a hard deck, guys. Like,
I think they almost completely ignore the hard deck in the second movie.
They mentioned it like
in one of the training exercises.
No, he has the folder ready to request to lower the hard deck when he gets in trouble. Like that was hilarious to me.
That was pretty funny.
I mean, the pilot
like Navy bureaucracy is so predictable that he already had that drafted.
Yeah, but they are a little bit less, because like in the first one it's like 10,000, and the second one it's 5,000. Yeah, the pilots are a little bit more like, well, if he says do it. Yeah. Kind of thing.
It was they were playing fast and loose with it in the second movie.
But I'm okay with that. I picture it like as an action movie, so everything's not going to be totally accurate, and that's kind of what pulled it away from a sports movie for me was just starting with this like high tech jet and Ed Harris, like that set it up to be like not a sports movie for me.
Yeah, that was more like nostalgia personified. Like when you say it's a dad movie of the 80s, it's totally, I can see the appeal for like people that saw this in their teens and their 20s, and now they're like 40 and 50 and they're like, he still got it. Like, you know, maybe I still have something left in the tank too.
That's such a good way to put it. That is so good.
Yeah, because I mean, he's looking real Robert Redford these days, which is not a criticism. Being 59 and looking like, and you're just now getting to your Robert Redford like kind of sagging jowls, but still looking pretty hot.
There was like one shot with his helmet on. I was like, his cheeks are kind of puffing out.
Yeah, but that's like, I was thinking
still looks great.
That's like everybody.
It's crazy.
Like, put on your helmet.
But like at the Alamo, he gave an intro.
Yeah,
and that's when you really saw the age. Like you could tell that it's been a couple of years since they filmed something.
Well, you don't have all that. You don't have all that VFX goop they put on in post-production to make everyone look so much younger.
So Calvin, would you say, because you think Hangman is a pretty beautiful person,
I mean,
so
he's
do you
probably
think Hangman or Tom Cruise is more handsome?
Oh yeah, Glenn Powell, the guy who plays Hangman. I mean, has there ever been a more shining example of an attractive man?
He walked out there.
He's like a literal Greek god,
douchebag.
And he's like a douchebag.
So okay, then I want to get into Hangman more. I think he's set up as a...
No, Calvin wants to get...
Okay.
Below the hard deck.
Around.
So he's set up as kind of the new rival character to kind of take that same role that Iceman has in the first film. Yeah. And that's what this character is. The big difference I have with him is not only is he a completely unlikable character, and he's so like rude and arrogant. I think the big difference is if you take Kazansky in the first film, say you change the perspective, make it about Kazansky, and then he's a hero. He exemplifies all the greatest things about being like a great Navy pilot. He's careful but still confident. He cares about the people he's flying with. He'll do anything for them. He just exemplifies like I think what you would want in your Navy
like a real hero archetype.
And then if you take that from his perspective and you view Maverick, this is an arrogant, arrogant man who will take things into his own hands and risk other people's lives to accomplish whatever he thinks he can do.
Women into the bathroom.
Yes, so weird.
Which seems like a Hangman thing to do.
Yes, and so I think that's, Calvin had said it before we started recording, he was like, Hangman is actually Maverick. If you change the perspective, like that's who he is.
But that's like along the point of that this is really showing that Maverick has changed. But he hasn't really. It's like he has he hasn't.
He's literally like,
Maverick
he still has to be the same.
In order for it to be like, just to stir up a problem. You know what I mean? Like he was playing outside the rules. You know, he was like playing in the gray area and bending and breaking some rules. But he was never mean. You know what I mean? Like Hangman was just mean. You're saying that Hangman is Maverick, but the difference is that Hangman was just mean. Like he's just stirring up trouble. Like Maverick, was like breaking and bending some rules and playing around in the gray area. to try to prove how good of a pilot he was, but he wasn't like mean for no reason. You know what I mean? He wasn't a dick for no reason.
Is leaving your wingman for isn't that mean? Like,
isn't that exactly what Maverick did in the first movie?
That's selfish for sure, and he does it too. Like, I think the difference is if the movie were to continue to play out with this whole thing, Hangman would never learn that that's not what you do. Maverick learned that that's not what you do.
But Hangman did learn at the end.
Yeah, Hangman did learn.
Well, only because he was like the Alert 5 and he was the dude in the jet that had to go save them at the end. That doesn't mean he learned. He was just the dude in the seat when he got shot off the carrier.
Yeah, but then
any of them would have done that. That doesn't mean that they learned how to be a team player.
I think the story wants you to believe that.
Yeah, I think the story
wants you to
strongly
believe,
implies that that's what happens, because I agree. Like, like Hangman is just mean, but I think they're still like within the same bounds of the same archetype. Like, they're cocky, they're arrogant, they're really good, and it's just slight different personality quirks.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're filling the same role in terms of what type of character that is.
And I think the problem is what the movie wants you to think is that this is new Iceman. But he's really new Maverick.
It's stupid that they made that a thing anyway, because it's copying and pasting from the person who was supposed to be the antagonist in the first movie. They just copied that entire formula and put it into this one. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was lazy. There didn't need to be an antagonist. No. Like, there didn't need to be that at all. Like, the story, the conflict between Maverick and Rooster was enough conflict between the people. They didn't need to add this third person to stir the pot even more. I thought it was a waste for him to be there just to cause drama. It was a waste of time. There's time that you could have had with 15 more minutes of fighter time if they had just not added that, because it doesn't add any value to the story, him being a cocksucker. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah. And I would actually say I agree with you, but the opposite. I think that we need to get rid of Rooster because it's
I agree with you, but the opposite. That's a weird way. I am so confused about that.
So the reason is like, he learned in the first movie, Maverick learns from his mistakes. He learns to be a good teammate, a good wingman, and learns that he's good, but he's okay with being second. He's made peace with, I don't need to be the best. I need to be as good as I can be. That helps and keeps everybody alive. And then when you see Hangman, that's the exact thing that he was when he was in the first movie. So the whole thing would be like helping him, like Hangman realize, no, this is how you're a Navy pilot. This is how you be a better person. And then
and like, that would have sucked though too, because again, it would have just been a copy and paste of what Maverick was in the first one, and it's like it wasn't original that way either. Like,
I agree.
I totally agree with you. Like, there didn't need to be this Rooster Maverick conflict. Like, there was no reason for Rooster to have to be a Navy pilot, like have to be a fighter pilot. There was no reason to make that a thing, just to like, aside from probably them trying to redeem Maverick or to like bring a conclusion to his like acceptance of what he's done and to like move on with it. You know what I mean? But like, it didn't need to be a thing. It didn't need to be a thing. Nobody watched the first movie and was like, oh my God, I wonder how Maverick's going to handle Goose's kid when he grows up. Nobody asked that question when they got done with the first movie. It never needed to be resolved.
No, I was just saying, they're like, is Maverick going to get addicted to drugs? Like, that's what I was thinking. I want to see, like, Maverick Requiem for a Dream movie. Like, he is still a fighter pilot, but he's also, like, addicted to meth.
Yeah.
Because he has such trauma.
Yeah. I think if you really want to break away from the formula that they are just following from the first movie, make Rooster, like, a boatsmate with, like, a drinking problem, and he hangs all of his problems in life, what Maverick did to his dad.
Yeah.
He's just like turned up on the deck, like trying to fight Maverick after he gets out of the cockpit. And he's just he gets in trouble and he has to go like chip paint for the next hour.
I think that's I think that's was the weirdest part to me about how he was like angry and sullen a little bit, but he was always like so defeated and like timid. He was never he was never fiery, but neither was Goose, I guess.
I would love to know how he figured out that Maverick pulled his papers in the first place.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Too. I mean, also the fact that the Navy was like, is this going to be a problem? This seems like it'd be a problem.
It is a problem.
It's so funny because both the admirals and Maverick are like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. Like, everyone acknowledges that it's a bad idea, and they're like, we're going through with it anyway. It's so silly. So we've talked about kind of a collection of characters here and emotional moments and characters that we feel like don't belong. Tom Cruise had an interview where he said that the emotional core of the film is Maverick's relationship to Rooster. And I don't agree with that, because I think this movie is trying to beat you over the head with emotional cores. You have the relationship with Penny that's introduced. Apparently, it feels like it's been a long time fleeing, and they just haven't figured it out. You have the relationship with Rooster that kind of gets resolved and figured out in the third act of the film. And then what I think is actually more of the emotional core than anything is Maverick's relationship with Iceman. I think the most emotional scene in the film comes when they meet up, and I am shocked they got Val Kilmer to be in this. I thought he was just going to be a picture and like some text, because I mean he can't speak, and so I like how they found a way to work that into the film.
Question for you: did they dub in his voice?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did like a robotic recreation.
Yeah. I actually looked it up today. Yeah. It's his son who says the lines, and there's some software, some voice technology or whatever that they dubbed it over his line.
Those voice boxes are like super robotic. They're just like, hi.
And I feel like a huge dick too, because I was watching it. I was like, why the heck does he look like an old woman? Like, what is with this scarf? And then I was like looking it up, like doing some research about it today. I was like, oh my God, I am such a bad person.
Yeah.
Like, he has throat cancer. I'm so sorry, Val Kilmer. I'm so sorry.
He definitely looks like the salty sea cap, like admiral, whatever person. I didn't know
like
what everyone's
like an East Coast grandmother.
But I just kept writing like the person in charge and the person more in charge and the person more in charge than that.
That's a good way to put it.
The person in charge with a scarf.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, that scene was hard for me because I listened to a couple other podcasts and stuff, and a lot of people picked that out as the moment they were crying or close to tears, that emotional feeling. But I just thought that the lines landed well, but they repeat so many lines in this movie from the first one, and like the moment they said you got to let him go, I'm just like, really? Like everything seems so
obvious. I mean, the other
part of it,
it
wasn't very emotional.
Yeah, and I mean the other part, like you want to talk about like repeated lines of dialogue. There are only 5 lines of dialogue in this entire movie.
Really?
Is one of them "Talk to me, Goose"?
Talk to me, Goose.
Yep, talk to me, Goose. Don't give me that look.
What is it? Come on, come on, come on.
Yep. Okay. Need for Speed.
They didn't say the Need for Speed.
They didn't in this one?
I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it.
It was one of the few things they didn't seem to grab from the first movie.
It's because it was so hard for Tom Cruise to get it right in the first one. Because like I was watching the movie, I was like, why are they saying it? So it's like, I feel the need for speed. I'm like, really, you guys? You just couldn't quite do it at the same time.
Oh yeah, no, I get that.
It was like so hard for them to say.
I wonder if they just done so many takes and they're like, fuck it.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
That's what we figured too. They're like, okay.
We're just gonna make it dumb guys being dumb guys.
Yeah.
Although I am glad I watched Top Gun because I've heard that saying so many times, and now I know.
Now you know
where it came from.
That's how I felt watching Casablanca. I was like, oh, now I get all these things.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
People say it's such a colloquial like phrases from that film, and I'm like, I don't know any of this.
Yeah, exactly.
And Top Gun is absolutely in the zeitgeist the same way Casablanca is. So,
I wouldn't say that.
You don't think?
I still think Casablanca has more lines from it, like more quotable lines. I think Top Gun has some, but I don't think it's up there with Jaws.
But it's got like 3 like famous songs. So I mean, like, do those count? Does it soundtrack count? Because I think that's Top Gun's.
I mean, it's part of the aesthetic, but it's not like it's the memeable quality of
memeable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Of like of quotes.
Isn't it pronounced mamable?
Speaking of some of the soundtrack, Danger Zone sang by Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
So, he only got that job because Toto pulled out of doing vocals for any of the songs in the movie.
Wow. Toto.
That's crazy to me. Why would you want Toto to do anything?
He sings the Africa song.
That's the only thing they're known for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it got them big twice.
Yeah, once in the 2020s for some reason. But yeah, anyways, like my problem with like the emotion in this movie is it feels like it's just trying to build up to me the fact that Tom Cruise is just trying to prove that he can have real relationships. This felt like a vanity project to me. It's like not even about jets. It felt like a vanity project to prove that like I'm Tom Cruise. I can be friends with people.
Well, that's why like people say it's character driven because it wants to show that he has learned and grown and he's a different person while still being the same person.
Yeah, it's just
that it's for that.
It's just the car that drives that that point is an F-14 and it's old and outdated.
Yeah. That's a great analogy.
I did like that part though when they pulled out the old planes and the guy's just like, wait, the wings are like, what is happening? Like,
it's
why
are
they
attack mode?
moving? Yeah,
that's actually really funny because the helicopter that I fly in when I started flying was like brand new to the Navy, and I actually had to do a flight in the older model before I was like done with training, and I remember going into it and I was like, what is this? Like, I had the exact same reaction when he gets in the back of the F-14 and he's like, oh my god, what is this? And like I had the exact same reaction when I got into the Bravo. I was like, what is all this crap?
I love when he's like reaching back. He's like, there's like a million fuses back here. You want to help me out?
There's a million circuit breakers back here, Matt. Like, I don't know what the fuck you want me to do back here.
Like, he's like, that was Goose's department. Like, I love that. I thought it was great. So I want to get to the scenes that we're all been waiting for. Let's talk about shirtless volleyball and people who don't know how to play football right.
It's scramble or whatever.
It was so...
Yeah, what was it?
Dogfight football.
Combat football. Yeah. When they started, I was like, this is all wrong. I was like, they don't know how to play football here. What I do want to say, Tony Scott, the director of Top Gun, talked about that scene, and apparently he had this book of like male models that he went through, and that's actually kind of how he chose to cast guys.
Yeah,
he wanted to fit this aesthetic of this like book he had found.
I'm sure, and he just found it. I'm sure it wasn't like, under his bed already.
Probably under his pillow, even closer.
Yeah, exactly.
So he described shooting that scene, the volleyball scene in Top Gun. He was like, it was softcore porn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Everything, all of the lines are dubbed over because it's all slow mo.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cheesy and
they're gonna show that, but they're not gonna show Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly's butts. Like
yeah, exactly.
Like they're not gonna show them having sex, but they will.
Yeah,
do some softcore.
Yeah, I didn't know Top Gun was PG, which is way.
I think they're just moving away from sex scenes.
No, this was the '86 one.
The '86 one.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing really.
Yeah, there was.
Wrong.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
But I think Top Gun Maverick, its softcore porn scene is an order of magnitude worse than Top Gun's.
I liked the
volleyball scene is great.
Low lit.
I liked the football scene better than the volleyball scene because the volleyball scene I thought was going to be more important and it happened real quick.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's actually a point to the football scene.
There's a point to the football scene. Yeah. There's not a point to the volleyball scene.
Yeah, they're just like, it just needs that one guy does like a little like strongman pose.
John Hamm is constantly getting put in his place by Maverick over and over again, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think John Hamm was probably the brightest point, the only bright point of this entire movie. Up until
he's the worst. He represents the worst parts of the Navy, though.
Oh, totally. That's so real. That is exactly what I'm talking about.
That's real. He represents the worst parts of the Navy.
Yeah,
the bureaucratic,
so well.
Like nonsensical, can't think 2 inches past your nose parts of the Navy.
Totally, and he portrayed it perfectly.
Oh no, he did it very well, but his character is not something that anybody should be like, oh my god, that character was awesome.
No.
Oh, I don't. Not that the character was awesome, but the depiction of the character was awesome.
Oh yeah, no.
Within the framework of
is one of my favorites. I love John Hamm.
Yeah.
He did a great job being a dick.
I thought this movie was full of unlikable characters. I didn't care for anyone.
Yeah, it's chock full of them.
The only
person you're supposed to care about is Maverick and like Penny.
Yeah, you're right.
And then like Rooster. Those are the only people you're supposed to give a crap about because everybody else sucks.
You're supposed to care about those characters, but the only likable one is Bob.
Yeah, Bob is the best.
He's the best character.
Well, he's the comedic relief. So, like, whenever Maverick's not cracking jokes, Bob's the brunt of every joke, or he's the one who's not being serious. You know?
Yeah, it's his parents in Oklahoma that this movie was made for. Totally.
Probably.
I love that. I love he's got those glasses.
Bob's
on.
mom and dad. I hope you're proud.
Yeah, we spent $170 million on your son's graduation baby project
to give you this 2 hour and 15-minute like. Happy Fest. I don't know.
I love that he's got those glasses on too. We would call them BCGs. They're birth control glasses.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. which first of all, you can't be a pilot if you don't have good vision. Like you just can't.
Yeah, you need 20/20,
and you would never,
don't you?
You would never wear your glasses.
It's like you can have glasses
in the helmet.
It needs to be like correctable to 20/20 kind of a thing. Like you can have glasses. You can need glasses or need contacts and still be a pilot.
You just can't be colorblind.
Yeah, colorblindness is not a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought you had to have really good vision.
Yeah, I always heard that.
I mean, you do, like, every year for part of your flight physical, you have to pass like a color test and a depth perception test and a vision test, like how far away you can see like small things. Like I have to read a really tiny row of letters every year.
It's called the Snellen chart.
Snellen.
I don't care. I wasn't a fucking nerd, so I don't know.
So I guess there are two things that I still kind of want to talk about is the depiction of the male relationships in the first movie versus the second one. And also Act 3 is divided up into two parts, really. The training, the actual mission, and then when they both get shot down.
Right.
I think that's a weird turning point. I wanted to talk about that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about, no one seems to make a big deal about how much homoeroticism there is in Top Gun. Everyone's like, yeah, Top Gun is awesome. And everyone's talking about, you've got, Iceman doing the little bite thing at Top, and, like, oh, I think we're close. I got a hard on.
Dude, Calvin, you might be gay. I don't know. Like, I didn't think about any of that at all watching either movie. Like,
I didn't even
why
think
is that where your brain goes when you watch these movies?
Because
you might be gay.
It's true. That's the first thing I watched the first 15 minutes of the movie and I was like, holy crap, these guys all want to get it on. Like, that's all I saw. So maybe it's just the female perspective that Calvin has a little bit of.
It's just a very film thing. Like when you film them from the angles that you did, their longing eyes, everybody's sweaty and shirtless. We're constantly talking about penises.
But maybe that's just a guy thing.
But I think the thing is like, it's implied like, yeah, everyone wants to be Maverick. Everybody wants to have sex with Maverick, including guys, because the 80s. And I don't know why, like that's just like, it's just not mentioned as something. It would feel very progressive, I think, if it were to come out today and like virtue signaling. And that's what I think is so strange about like how it's just nobody's talking about this when we're talking about Maverick.
Yeah.
How very, very different it is in how we depict male relationships in this movie.
Well, and I think if you haven't been in the Navy, you wouldn't know that people say gay stuff in the Navy all the time.
Yeah.
Like constantly, like it to be funny or whatever. I mean, so I think it actually captures that kind of quality of male camaraderie, where sometimes you just say really gay things to be funny. But this movie captured it really well.
I didn't notice any of that in either movie. Like I'm so.
It's very homoerotic. Like, it's very homoerotic.
Yeah, I didn't notice it so much in this one.
No,
but
not
in the original,
the gayest
for sure.
thing that happens is them in the showers just standing around in their towels, but nobody's trying to.
I think that's the
Nobody's trying to bang.
No, that's the least one. It's just like, I think some of the ways, and this might be from the 80s too, they got like the bright eyes and like they stare a little bit longer.
Everything's
like,
saturated.
Everything takes longer.
Well, but that's
it might
for
be
dramatic effect though, right?
I know, but like sometimes it gives it that vibe of, oh, we're staring at each other.
It can take on that connotation.
I think it gives it that vibe if you're looking for that vibe.
I wasn't looking for the vibe,
I think that's the vibe Tony Scott was looking for.
That's exactly what I think. Like I'm not joking. In that documentary I watched, Tony Scott references this book of male models an awful lot.
Yeah.
And so I do think he was trying to give off, and he talks about in the documentary about it being like being homoerotic, and he definitely wanted to bring equality to that.
Did you feel that way before or after you watched that documentary?
I felt it. So I rewatched Top Gun before I watched this documentary.
I mean, like the very first time you ever watched the first Top Gun movie, did you ever feel like there was a bunch of homoerotic undertones?
I was like 8, so I wasn't thinking about any of that.
Yeah, they're just like planes.
But so then the first time you watched it as an adult, whenever, like, is that what you were watching it for? Were you like worried about it? Were you like trying to be observant for those things? Like, is that something that you were paying attention to and looking for when you watched the movie? Were the homoerotic undertones?
No, that's the point. Is I wasn't looking for them, but they were so overt that I couldn't help but see them.
Yeah,
that's my thinking. It's like rewatching it again a couple weeks ago in prep for this. I was like, wow, this movie's so gay.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do pick that up, and I picked it up. I wasn't looking for it, and I noticed it, but I think I picked that up in a lot of older movies too. I think just sometimes like the way people interact is a little different. And especially when you get super like macho people together, they're all like, oh, I'm so confident. Like, yeah, it's not really a part of it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. There's a new type of male machoism that really stays away from towing the line of gayness.
Yeah.
So like in a movie like, what was it? Shaw and whatever, the one with Jason Statham and like The Rock, right? There's like plenty of times when they're all sweaty together and stuff like that. But is there any homoerotic undertones in that? Just because
I would never watch that movie, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I would know.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it has nothing to do with like, I don't think it has a lot to do with the shirtlessness or the sweatiness. I think it's just like how they kind of like look at each other. And Tom Cruise really doesn't say a lot in the first movie. He just has this like smile, this grin, and so you can really just
there's all
apply anything. So if you have like if you catch a whiff of something that like gets in your head, I think you pull it out more.
Yeah,
than you would otherwise.
I think there's a difference between
He's
showing
got the
male
"I want
camaraderie.
you to give it to me" grin.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of my notes. I wrote Tom Cruise smiled. I finally think he's attractive. And then later in the movie, I wrote Tom Cruise won't stop smiling.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, I think there's a difference between male camaraderie and male homoeroticism, and this oftentimes crosses the line from camaraderie over into homoeroticism, whereas I think in Maverick, they're very much staying in the box of camaraderie. And that's the difference in the depiction between the football game versus the volleyball game.
Yeah.
Well, the difference between the two is that in the first one, they were all lieutenants. They were all the same. In the second one, he's a captain with 30 years of experience. He's their teacher and their mentor, and he's not one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not his role in that group.
But between the people playing the game, once he steps back and he's watching them play the game, it's clearly about the camaraderie.
They go and mess around with the warrant officer, which I also have no idea what his purpose is either. Like,
I think he's from the first
the warrant
one.
officer. He's not a lieutenant or anything either. I have no idea what the warrant officer's purpose is in this whole movie. I don't think that every captain gets a warrant officer to follow them around. And do stuff for them.
Maybe he was assigned to Maverick to be like, try to keep this guy in check. Like, you
he's
just
a handler.
follow him.
Yeah.
He's like a handler.
Yeah, well, he doesn't do that at all. So I can't imagine that that's a real thing because he doesn't make any attempt to even try to do that.
Yeah, all that stuff got cut.
Yeah, I wonder. I assumed he was in the first one, but because his name's like is that Warlock or is that someone else? Because there's a
Warlock's a different guy.
Oh, gotcha. Because there's a Merlin in the first one, I thought.
Merlin was his backseater after Goose died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, isn't Merlin? No, Merlin's the guy that dropped out. He couldn't fly anymore. He gave up his wings.
Oh, that was him.
That's Merlin.
Oh,
was that Merlin?
I was just trying to remember who.
I thought no.
Because I thought there was one.
No. It wasn't Cougar.
I'll bet you
it was
$1,400.
$1,400.
I mean, I'm gonna edit this out, so it's fine. Let's see.
I just wonder if he really was in the first movie. I just assumed he was. His character was, but it's hard to tell.
It seemed like it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Penny.
Yeah, Penny was barely in the first one.
Yeah, Merlin is Tim Robbins. Did you know it was Tim Robbins?
That was Tim Robbins?
Yeah.
I Googled it just now. Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, Merlin's the one who gives up his wings because he can't fly
who's
anymore.
the other guy then? Who's the...
But wait, like...
Because his backseater is Sundown, played by Clarence Gilliard Jr.
Sundown.
Because he's got that really rad, like, Japanese, like, sunset.
Rising sun.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to make this a two-parter. I think we had a lot to talk about. So thank you, Calvin, my wingman, Carlstein Jung, for being here.
Of course.
And Katya, thank you for being on as always.
Oh, yeah.
And Kiefer, thank you for being here as a guest.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
All right, and you can find our podcast on any platform like Spotify or Apple Music. We also upload all these to YouTube, so go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us what we're doing well. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.